Hi everyone, I'm Suzanne. Thank you for joining me. In today's video, I'm going to share with you a homeschool update, and I'm also going to share with you the schedule that we are now using in our homeschool. And I promised that to some viewers, and I definitely want to make sure that I share with you the schedule that we're keeping at this stage. I do want to preface that by saying we are adjusting that as needed. But this will be the schedule that I'm sticking with until Christmas for sure. And then I'll evaluate over the Christmas break and see what we need to tweak. And I'm sure there will be some things because I've already added a couple things into our schedule that wasn't planned. And yeah, so we'll see how that goes. And for reference, we've been homeschooling now. We started in the middle of September, so we've done 5 weeks of homeschooling. And 1 week of that, we were very sick and we didn't get a lot done that week. So for the most part, we've been doing this for a month. And if you saw my curriculum choices for the year and the changes that we made already before we even started, you'll know that there's quite a bit of curriculum, and it is literature based, a couple of these curriculum studies, and they're all new to us. And the reason that I'm saying that is because the approach that I've taken thus far for our homeschool year has been I've been slowly implementing different pieces of curriculum. So for example, we are doing a Harry Potter themed homeschool this year, and we haven't started that. So that's going to start at the beginning of November. And the reason that I chose to do that was because I was just starting to get too overwhelmed, even trying to plan out, and also all the pieces, because there's a lot of pieces, like with our language arts, for example. And I wanted to be relaxed about that and not, I just didn't want to get so anxious and overwhelmed. It doesn't make for a good homeschool environment. And it is the exact opposite of what I was trying to do this year and why I chose the pieces and curriculum that I chose. I wanted this to be a fun year and for Vivian to have the opportunity to learn a lot, but also to have it be a bit more fun. So that is the approach that I've taken, and it's been working really well. For example, history. Now we are doing History Quest this year. So History Quest, we've done a couple weeks now of History Quest, but we didn't start with History Quest. What I started with was this Time Traveler. This is an Usborne book, and I originally had said we were going to do this over the summer, and then we didn't have a chance to get to it. So I wanted to do that. We started at the new year. It was fun. Vivian, of course, totally enjoyed it, and there was no pressure. So it sort of let me off the hook, so to speak, with history while I focused on learning some of the other new curriculum and got comfortable implementing it. Because if I do not feel comfortable with a piece of curriculum, or if I have to do too much prep for the following day, then I end up not doing the prep, to be honest, and things get dropped. So I really love this approach I've taken this year. It worked a lot. Now I'm going to walk you through the schedule, as I said, and I'm going to put it up here. So I have a copy here, and I'm going to reference it while I share with you, but I know it's going to reflect the light because I laminated this schedule. So I'm just going to stick it up here, and then it'll be up on the screen, and you can look at it as much as you would like to. So we have a 4-hour homeschool day, and 1 hour of that is for the last hour of the day, and it's for projects and also for games if there's any time left. But we do have quite a few projects going this year, so I definitely wanted to dedicate an hour to that. Now, if you followed me for a couple years, you know, I love morning baskets. It's been a big part of our homeschool. And this year we're doing a morning basket, but it's very different. We are doing a year in the 100-acre wood study. And I've chosen to use that 1 hour morning basket time to focus on a year in the 100-acre wood. And I've taken 15 minutes out of there for, if you see on the schedule, we have memory work, which is really, I just don't want her to forget. Like, for example, she memorized all the Latin American countries last year. So things like that she's memorized, I want to just make sure she doesn't forget them. And we're adding on, for example, right now she's doing Canada and memorizing the provinces in Canada. So that only takes about 5 minutes. And the other thing that I wanted to add in is we're taking 10 minutes to read, or more if we're liking some of the stories, this What Your Second Grader Needs to Know. So this is based on core knowledge in the States. Now this is one every second grader needs to know. We also have what every third grader needs to know. And this year, for the school year, I also bought What Every Fourth Grader Needs to Know, which is actually, Vivian is in the fourth grade this year. So what I'm doing is I'm going through and I'm reading the stories that we missed. For example, the language arts, there's a whole bunch of tales and stories in there, and the history. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss anything. And when I pulled out the second grader this year, Vivian was quite aghast because she's in fourth grade. However, once I started reading the stories, she really enjoyed them, went, oh, it's okay. So my intention with that is, I purchased these books. They're on our shelves. I definitely want to use them. And these books in particular, they go up to grade 6 and they do build upon each other and they refer to the previous year. So we'll finish what every second grader needs to know, moving into what every third grader needs to know, and so on. And we'll see how much we get finished this year. I'm hoping for sure. We're almost finished what every second grader needs to know. That'll probably be finished in the next week or two. I'm not spending a huge amount of time, like I said, every day on them, but I am spending enough time that we are going through the stories quite quickly. And yeah, I really want to make sure we get what every third grader needs to know definitely done this year. If we do not finish what every fourth grader needs to know, I'm okay with that, but I definitely want to take a chunk out of that book. So that is what we're doing in our morning basket. And I am going to do a review probably in the next month. Well, I'll do it before November, at the end of November at any rate. I feel like we'll have had enough time with that curriculum to really do a nice in-depth review for you. I will say already that I absolutely love it. And there's quite a few books on the book list. So she recommends the core books that we're using every week that I've purchased. I showed them in a previous haul. But she also has a huge book list for books you can get from your library just to have like a basket set aside in case your child wants to read for the topics that were chosen for that week. And I've got a few of those books, but I don't know how many of those I'm going to do because, as you'll see, we do a huge amount of reading in our homeschool. And by the time we're finished everything, Vivian wants time to read the book she's reading for pleasure. And not that these books aren't pleasant. It's a bit much because we're doing also some reading for history as well. So I'm feeling my way through that and getting used to what is working for us. We're now going to the library weekly and exchanging huge stacks of books. So I'm loving that part. One of the things I'm loving about this is there are handicrafts every week. There are also lots of books, and there are some baking every week. And of course, Winnie the Pooh, I think, is a really great offset. It's really cozy. We haven't read all the Winnie the Pooh, and it's just perfect for this age, I find. I was a bit concerned about that, but my daughter was all for it, and we're both enjoying that a lot. And I feel like for a couple years now, once I discovered YouTube and homeschool on YouTube and Instagram on homeschool, there were so many studies and things that I wished I had discovered a couple years back when Vivian was younger, and I felt sad that I had missed out. I feel like I'm getting the opportunity with a year on 100 Acre Wood to do all those things. For example, we're doing a picture study every week. And I've always loved the idea of that, the Charlotte Mason picture study. I even bought one of Charlotte Mason's picture study packs, and I've never used it. I also love the idea of doing handicrafts. I'm not a handicraft kind of person or a crafty person. So I really haven't done much of that with Vivian at all. And I feel like this year, before I'm getting the opportunity with a year on 100 Acre Wood. And I have to say, it's one of the things I'm, as a educator and a parent, I'm loving the most, is that I don't feel like I'm going to miss out on doing all that with Vivian because of this year. And it's still at that age where she enjoys it. And yeah, so that's the biggest plus for me. I'm absolutely loving that opportunity. And she has really, the crafts and handicrafts are not too onerous. So it's a bit of a challenge for me, though, I'll have to admit. You'll see some of those. I don't know if I'm going to show them in my updates, but I've been really trying to keep my Instagram more up to date with some of the things we've been doing. So definitely check me out on Instagram. I know one of the things I've been doing for sure is I've been showing all the library hauls we've been doing, because I'm not going to share all those books on YouTube. But if you want to know the books that we have been reading and getting out for our studies, definitely check out the Instagram. Okay, so moving on with the schedule. I know that was long-winded, but I do want to say, yeah, absolutely very grateful for a year in the 100 Acre Wood. Okay, next I have our math, which is from 10 to 10:30. And I'm keeping that at a half hour. So I know sometimes I want to do longer, and last year I would push it 45 minutes to an hour. But this year I'm really just keeping it at a half hour. I have been using a timer, and I am going to stick to that and just really have faith that consistency is the key. If we do math every day for a half an hour and we're consistent with that, she will learn what she needs to learn and practice what she needs to learn. So yes, that's a half hour. And in the past, I've sometimes used timers, and other times I haven't liked using a timer at all. This year I've been using a timer for certain things because I find it's easier for us to get going when we know we only have to do it for a set period of time. Also, one of the things we did last year quite a bit was we'd really love something we were doing in the morning. We wouldn't want to put it down. And then by the end of the day, we wouldn't want to continue. We'd had enough of school. So we kept missing out on things that were on our schedule, like math, for example. This way, I really want to stick with the timer and know if I'm taking something out or if I'm putting something into the schedule, I have to take something out. It's really helping me to be very mindful of that. And I find that it's working, and I don't feel pressured by it. I actually am enjoying it this year. All right. Then I just kind of throw in a snack. We don't stop for snack. I just make sure there is one on the table. Then we do language arts for an hour. And because we're using Guest Hollow's curriculum and the Beowulf grammar, and then we're doing a bunch of other things for language arts, like for Harry Potter, that will also end up in that 1 hour. We definitely need a 1 hour time slot, but the activities that we do every day varies. The only thing I've been consistently doing during our language arts is spelling. So we are doing all about spelling, and we've been kind of pushing through level 1 so we can get to level 2, which I think is going to be more challenging for Vivian. So we make sure we do that during our 1 hour. Next, I have 11:30 to 12 is our history/science hour. So the schedule I'm talking through right now, if you can see on the screen, is Monday to Thursday. So on Monday to Tuesday, we do history during that time slot. And then on Wednesday and Thursday, we're doing science. And I'll get to Friday after I'm finished this run through. And then we're breaking. We're going to take an hour walk. We need to get out of the house, come back home. We have an hour for lunch, and we're doing separate things at that point in time. So Vivian can go have her lunch and read a book or go watch a program, whatever, play in her playroom sometimes with her lunch, whatever. But that 1 hour is for each of us on our own. And then we do come back and we do an hour for our projects. And I have found we've been needing that time because, like I said, I'm not the craftiest person. And so we now have projects and crafts to do with our A Year in the 100-Acre Wood and also our history. So History Quest has something we can do once a week. We did our first project last week where Vivian did some cave paintings, using clay. We made clay paint, and she did some painting, with that clay. That was a lot of fun. And once we start doing our Harry Potter study, we are doing the curriculum, What is Magic? And that is all project based. That's 3 days right there. And What is Magic? Some of them are a little involved. So how I'm approaching that is we have the 1 hour allocated for projects. What doesn't get finished, we set it aside and we come back to it the next day for that 1 hour time slot. Now, Vivian was having a grand time and wanted to continue. I might let her, but I know it depends on what the project is and how I see the rest of the week going, because if we do that too often and she doesn't get enough downtime, she's not as excited to do homeschool the next day. So, I want her to continue to be excited. For example, one of the things Vivian said to me this week when we were doing, made our little Beowulf here, if you can see that. So we're doing Beowulf grammar, which is part of our Guest Hollow curriculum. And she really loved that. And she's liking the approach for our language arts studies. And she was really excited. I said, well, I said this year was going to be fun. And she said, yes, but I didn't believe you. Anyway, she's having a great time this year. So that is what I hope for this year is happening. And I really want that to continue. And I think this schedule is going to help us. So that will take us to 3 o'clock. At that point, she ends the day with her piano practice as well as her singing practice. And that only takes about 15 minutes. And then she's free for the day. Okay, now I'm going to talk about our Fridays. So on Fridays, it does look a little bit different, as you can see. In the morning, I'm not doing a morning basket on Fridays. We are doing geography. So we're doing geography 1 day a week during that time slot. And we're starting off with Greece, and then we move into studying Canada. And then after Christmas, we'll finish up Canada and then move into studying Africa. So that is what we're doing for the year for geography, and that will happen on Fridays. We then continue with our half hour of math. We are doing math 5 days a week, and we are doing language arts 5 days a week because, like I said, we're doing a lot for language arts this year, but I'm going to try to keep some of the fun things like she's doing up a grimoire and things like that for Fridays during that language arts hour. I mean, a lot of it's fun anyways, but I'm really going to try to make that extra special on Fridays. All right, and then after we have our snack, we're going to do some baking for a half an hour. So Year in the 100-Acre Wood, it has something that you can make every week, which is always really cute. And we are also going to make something for our Harry Potter study every week once that starts as well. And then we're going to eat that as well as our lunch, and we'll have a poetry tea time. So we have loved poetry tea time in our homeschool. Last year, I found it kept getting put aside. So we didn't do poetry tea time near as much last year, and we both missed it because we've loved it. So this year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a part of our lunch. And as you see on Fridays, we're not stopping for a walk and everything. And the reason is my daughter has a singing lesson on Friday afternoons, and it is outside of the house. So yeah, we need to wrap everything up much earlier. So we'll be finished school by 2 o'clock for sure on Fridays because we have to leave. And we'll have done our baking, and we'll also have had a nice poetry tea time. And Vivian also wanted to do a show and tell. So we've added that into that time as well. She likes doing a show and tell, and I love it that she does it. It's always fun to see what she picks out and what she wants to talk about. So that is the end of the day. We leave and then we go to singing lessons. Yeah, so that's going to be our homeschool schedule. One thing we did this year already, see, I've added something in already that wasn't initially in our curriculum study, but for our science, I started off, instead of jumping right into doing the owl study, we ended up doing a wolf study. And it started with this book, A Wolf Called Wander. Now, what prompted this study is that I'm trying to take something off our bookshelf every month and really be aware of using the books that I've already purchased over the last couple of years. And this was one of them, A Wolf Called Wander. And by Roseanne Perry. I've heard this talked about in other homeschool channels. I want to say something though, because we studied a lot of other picture books and we watched a couple documentaries about wolves. I was really surprised in a good way to discover that the author really portrayed the behavior of wolves very accurately in this book. And we loved the telling. We listened to this in an audiobook. We loved the telling of this story, and we were both really excited that it was so accurate. Both Vivian and I picked up on that. Now, this story is based also on a real wolf that traveled across the United States and settled in California. It was the first wolves that have been in California in 20 years. There wasn't any there for 20 years. They had all been killed. But yeah, so now A Wolf Called Wander in real life, is one of the oldest wolves known, 10 years old. And him and his partner have had 5 litters of pups, and they've repopulated California with wolves. Yeah, anyway, I can't say enough about this book. We also have one she wrote on whales. So I'll be really excited to jump into that after having read this. So we did do a wolf study, like I said. Now we're finished that. The one thing that we have left is we started to do A Wolf for a Spell. And this is about Baba Yaga. Now we did this last year, both Viv and I loved when I could tie in like a fantasy book in with the studies that we had that month. It was a huge success, and I wanted to continue that trend if I can. So I took the opportunity to throw this book in there. We are only a chapter into the book, but really like it so far. And I think it's going to be a fairly quick read. So this one I'm reading myself, and I'll let you know in the next update, I guess, how much we like that. Hopefully I can say we liked it a lot. Now, another book that we read, a middle grade book that was, I'm not sure, I put it on hold a long time ago, and it finally came in, and it was in with our library books. And this is called Alone by Megan Freeman. And this story is told in verse. And this young girl, her family, everybody was evacuated in her town. And we don't know why. It doesn't say why. You don't find out until the very end of the book why everybody in the town was evacuated. But she had lied to her parents and said that she was staying at her parents were divorced. She had told her father that she was staying at her mother's and told her mother she was staying at her father's, and she went to her grandparents' apartment. They were away for the winter. So she slept through it all. She didn't even know everybody left. She woke up in the morning and everybody was gone. So this story, again, told in verse, but we listened to it on audio. And where at first Vivian saw that it was in verse, she was a bit reserved. And honestly, when we listened to the audiobook, you could not tell that it was told in verse. It was beautiful. And, you know, she ended up alone. This is not a true story, by the way, but she ended up alone in this abandoned town for 3 years. She was, I think, 11 or 12 at the time that everybody disappeared. Anyway, I have to tell you, we absolutely loved it. We both loved it. Highly, highly recommend this book. And again, it was on audio. We listened to it on Scribd, which I also recommend the audio. We both rated it 5 out of 5. Absolutely recommend that book too. One of the books we're reading this month, and we're doing it for participating in a readathon, and it's Amari and the Great Game. So yeah, the readathon has different prompts. It's for Alexander Rosalind's Patreon. I joined her Patreon, and we're having a readathon this month, and it's the last week of October. And this book, Amari and the Great Game, hits many of the prompts. And we were really excited to read this middle grade anyways. It was just newly released. And the reason is because this was one of our favorite books last year. It was Amari, the first book. So Amari, this is a fantasy book. As you know, we love fantasy. And I would say this was Vivian's favorite book last year. And well, that's what she had told me at one point. We have a couple contenders, but in the first book we met Amari, who her brother ended up disappearing. Nobody knew where he was, and she's determined to find him. And she ends up finding out about a secret society of people that have magic in this whole world. And she ends up going to magic school and meets other friends. So there's a lot of camaraderie, and we get to see that she's kind of like the outcast, and her type of magic is not looked upon favorably. And yeah, it just ends up really a good, cozy feel, action-packed. Oh, it was just such a fast read. And like I said, it was one of my daughter's favorite books last year, and I absolutely loved it. So we're really looking forward to that read aloud this month. And we'll have that finished up, as well as the Wolf book for November, because we're going to start Harry Potter. But honestly, we're only doing like a chapter, I think, a week, and maybe 2 weeks if we can't get all the material finished within a week. Every week or two, so it's not going to be really onerous in terms of read alouds. So we always have 1 or 2, maybe 3, sometimes 4 read alouds going all at the same time. But I don't know, I love sharing what we're reading, and I love talking about books on this channel, as you know. Oh, we're also reading a book. Oh my goodness, I can't remember the title. Something Hangnail. It's about a little witch that's trying to be a wicked witch in a castle, but she's so obviously not. Anyways, Vivian's liking it. We kind of go back and forth between me reading it and using the version on Scribd. So we're going back and forth between me reading and audio, like I said. Now, Vivian likes the book. It isn't my favorite, but she really likes it. So we're going to continue to read that. And I'm glad I did this update, because I realized, well, I better kind of up our read aloud times in the evening to get those 3 books finished before the end of the month. Also for the read aloud, we are doing some graphic novels and some picture books, which is a lot of fun. So like I said, lots of reading happening as usual in this house, and it's a great time of year for it anyways. Everything's starting to get really cozy. I think that's everything. There's still a couple of items like for language arts that we haven't started. For example, this week we're starting our Greek and Latin root words study. That's another thing that we're adding in. And around the time you're going to see this video, my daughter is also starting with an acting class, an Shakespearean acting troupe. Is it called a troupe? I'm not sure. Anyway, she's doing a Shakespearean acting class with a group of students, and they are doing the 12th night. And if you remember if you saw my updates last year, we always do Shakespeare. We do study Shakespeare every year. But last year we did do 12th night. And I ended up buying these off Etsy last year, and we didn't end up using them, but I'm going to pull those out, and that's something that I'm going to have to take time out of our schedule for, because they are doing the 12th night, and last year Vivian found that particular play to be confusing. There were so many characters and the layout of the story is a bit confusing. So I had bought these in the hopes that it would help her to have a visual and to understand that story a bit more. So I have to actually go a little in depth with her, I think, on that before she starts her class, or even, the first week or two, to kind of help her understand that story, because that is what they're going to be studying in that acting class. So that's something else I'm kind of adding in that was not included in our schedule. And that kind of leads me into what I wanted to finish when we're talking about the schedule. And that is, I am sticking to this schedule, and I want to make sure that we're definitely getting our math done every day. That's a high priority for me this year. And her spelling is a high priority for me this year. And everything else that's in there is wonderful, and the study is fantastic. Everything else that we're doing is important, and the time has been allocated for it. But what we don't get finished in a day, so be it. We will pick it up tomorrow. And, that is my attitude. I'm not stressing over this. I want to have a good time this school year. Definitely study and learn as much as possible. But we have allocated times for our subjects, and I'm sticking to that schedule. Again, I'm just going to repeat this for myself and to be really clear with you. If we do not finish our history during the 2 days we have allocated, for example, chapter unit 2 or something, that's fine. Then I'm not going to finish it. We will finish it the following allocated time for history. Now, I will have to say, since I'm talking about that unit, I did find the 2 days was enough to do a lot of reading within that time. And part of the reason is we are doing the project, but the projects have its own allocated time. So a half an hour of reading for history is actually quite a bit. So I feel that that's enough time for history. Now, when we get into some of the more science experiments and that sort of thing, then we might have to adjust the schedule. But thus far, our science is just studying again. So we just did the wolf study, and now we're also added in a bird of prey study. But really that for the most part is a lot of picture books. And so, it's a lot of reading. You don't want more than a half an hour. We do not want more than a half an hour for that type of reading. It's too much information. So yeah, I think that's going to be enough time. And because we have that other hour allocated for projects, I really think it's going to be okay. But yeah, that is my intention. And I will let you know next month how that is working out. Because by the time I do the update next month, we will have put everything into the schedule at least once. And I'll have a much better feel of how things are going right before Christmas break. Anyway, I would love to hear how your year is going. And for those of you that have similar subjects as me this year, I'd really love to know how you're scheduling out your day, or how this particular schedule that I've chosen to share with you resonates with you, and what you think of that. Please leave it in the comments below. And that's all I'm going to share with you today. I will see you soon with another video.